Slíomh Croghan I Cinsile, site theoran Chilwan agus Loch Garman. Agus is an seo ag deire an 8 hís déag a hála rud iontach.
We're here in the foothills of Croghan Mountain, Croghan Kinsale as it's known, in Ballin Valley, which is just to the left. Up on the right of me here we have Ballinasillog. And in this area in 1795 there was an amazing gold rush, a gold find.
Right behind me here is what they call the Gold Mine River, and the land here, I own the land at both sides of the Gold Mine River. And the story that I heard here from Mary Ellen Byrne was about a school teacher called Donoghue that lived over in Ballinagore, which is just above us here at the foot of Croghan Mountain. And he taught a hedge school in those years, was be British, so they had to do it secretly. And he went down to Wooden Bridge to teach the school.
He was making his way along the bank of the river, heading for Wooden Bridge, and he spotted a glint in the water. And when he picked it up, being an educated man, he had an idea this could be gold.
He got involved with a local girl, and she was wondering where he was getting his sort of wealth from and his clothes and everything else. And he told her that he was finding gold in the Gold Mine River and he was going to Dublin to sell it and all. And she couldn't believe it, and she told her family, and they couldn't believe it, and they were telling other ones, thinking he was gone really off his rockers.
And all of a sudden, through her family and neighbours, there was a gold rush here.
Croghan Kinsale here behind us is formed from granite. Granite is originally a magma, a liquid rock deep in the earth, and as it solidifies, some of the liquid forms quartz veins. These quartz veins contain gold and other precious minerals. As the rock is eroded by wind and rain, the gold is washed down the slope of the valley into the river and forms alluvial gold, and this alluvial gold is the source of the gold that was found during the Croghan Gold Rush.
So when the word spread, this valley, at one stage there was 4,000 people working the soil here.
Once it became known that there was gold in the river, people converged on the area from all over Wicklow, South Wicklow, North Wexford, Carlow. Everybody wanted to try their luck at panning for gold. So you had all ages, children, women, families turned up. There was a complete free-for-all for a couple of months between September and October 1795.
The grains could be found in the river. There could be, some of them were nuggets now, substantial nuggets. Others would be just like grains of salt or sugar that had to be sieved. Every implement that you could think of from a farm, they used pots, pans, knives, hay knives, spades, forks to dig what they could. So this was like the 49 gold rush in California type of thing.
There are a number of publications that describe the activity in the valley at the time, and one of these is landscape illustrations of Moore's Melodies, published around the 1830s. Thousands of every age and sex hurried to the spot, from the labourer who could wield a spade or pickaxe to the child who scraped the surface of the rock with a rusty nail. All were eagerly employed in searching after gold.
There was up to 2,500 ounces of gold taken from this river here beside me, the Gold Mine River, equivalent to about £4 million worth of gold today. We're going to try our hand at panning for gold. So we're going to show you the process now. What we need is our small shovel here, and we're just going to take a couple of shovelfuls of gravels from the river. We don't need too much. So we have it in our classifier. We're going to break this down now into a smaller size. So I'm going to float this off. You needn't be worried about throwing away any nuggets, because there is no nuggets of that size here at the moment. I'd say most of them are gone. So now we have our pan, right? So we're going to float this. We want to swirl this around. If there is any gold in the pan, the gold is going to be the heaviest element here, and it will sink to the bottom. But we need to float off the lights off the top of this. We need to reduce this pan down to a fraction of what's in it now. So I'm just going to float off. You can see it there, it's reducing. If you go too fast, you may lose your gold if you have any. So I'm going to remove any heavy stones that I can. We'll keep going. We're coming down to it now. It's caught on the rivels there, look at. So we're going to have one little swirl and have a look here now. I'm going to tap this, and if there is any gold, it'll go right to the bottom of the rim of the pan. And I'm just swirling this around now. And would you believe it? There is a flash in the pan. I can see a small amount of gold.
One of the largest nuggets found in the river weighed 22 ounces. There's a bronze replica in the National Museum of Ireland. The original nugget was shown to King George IV during a visit to Ireland. The man who found the nugget didn't have a great command of English, and the king thought it was a present and took it away with him. Cúirse an píosa óir na fóca agus cúg sé ar ais go dtí Sasanna agus níocha an fear bocht an óir nó éon airgid ón town sin.
So supplies were coming in. There was a little bit of a shanty town set up along the fields here beside us, little wooden shacks. There was people buying gold, there was people selling clothes, there was people selling implements.
People started to fight then over what patch of the river did they want to pan in and all, where the best parts was, and those rows broke out and all. And then also they set up drinking booths on the side of the river there, and there was more rows then at night time and all.
The government at the time were concerned about this, so they sent in the Kildare militia in October 1795 to take control on the pretext of restoring law and order. But they were also thinking about the future value of the gold in the river and in the mountain.
And downriver they actually set up a barracks, and up to 15 of these Kildare militia were stationed on the river at the whole time.
They built a couple of barracks in the area, and there's still just the ruins of one of them there, a few stones in the bottom of one of them there in the area still.
There were great expectations for the quantity of gold that might be found in the river and in the mountain. And these are summarised in a publication called Gleanings in Ireland, published by R. Fraser in 1802. Some very skillful mineralogists are of the opinion that at this place where gold has been found in the county of Wicklow, there is, if pursued with spirit, a sufficient quantity of gold to supply all of Europe.
So the government eventually set up, they brought in what we call knowledgeable people, but they didn't get near the amount of gold.
These works continued until the rebellion, the United Irish Rebellion in summer of 1798, and obviously paused for the duration of the rebellion. They resumed in 1800 and continued till 1803.
Two of the most famous people that came here would have been George Kinahan and another man called Weaver. They would have been brought in by the government here in an effort to try and find the mother lode of gold, which they thought was in Croghan Mountain. And in their efforts, they scored the whole hill with large trenches, trying to find a seam of quartz that led back into the hill.
The work was carried out between 1800 and 1803. It cost around £6,000 at the time, but only recovered gold to the value of £3,000. So the works were abandoned in 1803. The military left the valley and the locals returned. The location of the exploration trenches dug on the mountain and the shafts and adits can be seen on the Ordnance Survey map from 1835. So some of these trenches are still visible today on the side of the mountain. It's also interesting to note that when the Ordnance Survey were making the new maps of the country in the 1830s, they recorded the fact that there was still Irish spoken at that time in Wicklow. So the Varshin Talshans Mahan Gorev Dini le Gaeilge Lífa no Kaintori Dukish Hor and or Temple Croghan Kinchleg and Amshin.
By its very nature, a gold rush happening on the side of a mountain is going to spark the imagination and inspire lots of stories. And there are many examples of these down through the years. One of the earliest literary responses was a comic opera written by writer and dramatist John O'Keeffe, and this was called The Wicklow Mountains or The Lad of the Hills. Jane Elizabeth Moore was an autobiographer and a poet, and she wrote a poem in 1797 called The Gold Mine of the County Wicklow. Replete with hope shall commerce swell her fail, and deep the plough in culture fresh prevail. The tattered peasant by such bounty clad, with joyful toil shall make his children glad. Another person who was inspired by the gold rush on Croghan was celebrated lyricist and poet Thomas Moore. In the 1830s, he wrote a poem about how the gold held much promise but failed to fully materialise. And the name of this poem is Has Sorrow Thy Young Days Shaded? Has love to that soul so tender been like our Lagenian mine, where sparkles of golden splendour all over the surface shine? But if in pursuit we go deeper, allured by the gleam that shone, false as the dream of the sleeper, like love, the bright ore is gone. When I was researching my play, The Thaw, for the Courthouse Arts Centre in Tinnahealy, a number of interviewees mentioned the gold rush on Croghan. And I thought, that would make a great subject for a drama. The idea of a pop-up town on the side of a mountain with thousands of people converging, illegal sales of alcohol, prostitution and fights, the whole thing was very inspiring. The play was written at the height of the Celtic Tiger, and the gold rush seemed to be the perfect analogy for the greed which seemed to be so pervasive in Irish society at the time.
The National Museum of Ireland has a collection of Bronze Age gold artefacts. These include an item called the Tuberduff Torque. Tuberduff is a townsland about 3 miles north of Gorey, and the torque was discovered in the 1850s. On the old Ordnance Survey maps of Ballynagore, Ballinvalley and Ballinassillogue, there's a ring fort marked, which is again a prehistoric residence. So it may be that the people living in the ring fort were working the gold much earlier than the recent gold rush.
When I was growing up here, you'd always meet people coming up and down. There was even people spent a week here, panning every day for a week with camper vans and all. So they've been coming from all parts of Ireland and all parts of the world.
It's amazing to think that 200 years after the gold rush, people can come out from Gorey or Ark, or people like myself can come out here and with the permission of the landowners do a bit of a recreational panning. And you could be very lucky, you just don't know your luck. You might find a little picker or a little nugget of gold for yourself.
Sna céirte tar éis an fuad ar óir, idir ghaoine, chomhlachtaí agus cóparáidí, as éiring agus thar lear, leanú ar aig leis an gúrdach don bríomhlóid. Á méigean amach anseo, beidir go méid an táil leo, teacht ar inse éileach óir an Croghan.